Hello, this is Coffee and Wisdom. I'm Rev. Dr. David Breeden, the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. This is a humanist perspective on theological questions. Last week, we were looking at one of the rock stars of Christian theology in the United States, the Christian realist Reinhold Niebuhr. He even made the cover of Time magazine back in March 8th, 1948. Quite the rock star of his time. And one of the secrets for his success was those bon mots, those great little phrases he was able to generate that became part of the conversation of the United States between the 1930s and the 1960s. For example, one like this: self-righteousness is the inevitable fruit of simple moral judgments. Well, there is a lot in that, isn't there? Self-righteousness is the inevitable fruit of simple moral judgments. That's the kind of idea that made Reinhold Niebuhr a rock star of his time. You probably know that he wrote the Serenity Prayer. He wrote several versions over time. This is an early version just to give you a little bit of feeling for how this changed over time. But in this one, he says, "Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other." Again, it's really a very Greek, Roman, Stoic idea of trying to sort out what I can and what I can't as a person acting morally and ethically in the world, what I can and can't do within my own circumstances, the Serenity Prayer. Well, probably the next rock star in theology, because this doesn't happen all that often. Most Americans don't know the names of any theologians, I would argue. But right now, we do have a contemporary, Cornel West, born in 1953. He, for example, has a New York Times bestseller called Democracy Matters, winning the fight against imperialism. Cornel West is famous for supporting Bernie Sanders, being an opponent of Obama. He gets out in the street and is very much involved in the political, social life of the United States. Now, he calls himself a Christian pragmatist. So we have Reinhold Niebuhr from Union Theological Seminary as a theologian calling himself a Christian realist. And then we have Cornel West, Union Theological Seminary theologian, calling himself a Christian pragmatist. He has written extensively about American pragmatism. He's one of the foremost practitioners of the very intellectualized academic kind of pragmatism, but he then takes that out into the street. He's a very famous student of Richard Rorty, who I've talked about before in Coffee and Wisdom as one of the greatest late 20th century pragmatists. Of course, John Dewey and William James being the early ones. I wanted to read a few little quotes from Cornel West to talk about, well, why is he a rock star, for one thing? Why do people know about him? And how is he using this idea of Christianity in a way that is popular with a particular group of people? Reinhold Niebuhr being very in the middle, slightly a little right of center. Well, Cornel West is considerably left of center as a democratic socialist. He says this: "To be a Christian is to live dangerously, honestly, freely, to step in the name of love as if you may land on nothing, yet to keep on stepping, because the something that sustains you no empire can give you and no empire can take away." And this is part of his rhetoric, is that you've got to do it even though, and that's what liberal Christianity is all about in the streets. He says this: "The Christian way of life allows us to look unflinchingly at the wretchedness in the human condition and still emerge with joy, with a commitment to perseverance. Happiness in the modern sense is not really part of Christian discourse. The Declaration of Independence tells us that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but that's a secular influence. When it comes to spiritual food, I don't really go to brothers like Thomas Jefferson. When you're committed to trying to love people, really trying to be a neighbor, then you run to W.H. Auden's wonderful question: how do you learn to love your crooked neighbor with your crooked heart? That's the call. That's what's demanded. That's the wretchedness that we must look at unflinchingly. But it doesn't turn you into a nihilist or to revenge your hatred. What's on the other side is following Jesus. Pick up your cross and follow me. So you see the way he's weaving together Christian ideas with a slightly left of center political thought to talk about how we must act in the world. And he's quoting W.H. Auden, a British poet there. Here's another one. And this, I think, it really gets at the essence of how Cornel West operates and how he is able to communicate, and why I think he is one of the most quoted theologians of our own time. He says this: we Christians understand truth as a species of the holy. A post-truth world is a post-holy world. This is a form of spiritual breakdown. It's not new at all. This goes right back to an argument made by Thrasymachus in Plato's Republic. Might is right, but Thrasymachus's argument is just not true. Today, it's common to hear people speak of my truth and your truth. That's just a new jargon expressing a spiritual breakdown that's been a threat to human beings ever since we were made. So notice how he's weaving these things together. He's talking about a very contemporary social issue, the post-truth world. He's saying that is against Christianity. But he immediately goes into the philosophical tradition, talking about Plato, a very famous argument in Plato about whether or not right and might are the same thing, or if virtue needs to be involved in it. And that is I think, Cornel West in a nutshell. But you say, where are the realist, pragmatic, humanist theologians? Well, I'm glad you asked. That's what I'm going to be talking about Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. A big thank you for financial support from Anita Martinez, Marcy Lessler, and Ren Nippling. Thanks a whole lot for keeping us on. And Coffee and Wisdom. If you've got questions, comments, etc., please email me, minister@firstunitarian.org, and I'll see you again at 9 a.m. Central Time on Thursday. Thank you.